Welcome to Archery Country Podcast. Welcome back, everybody, to Archery Country Podcast. We're Waite Park studio time. Today we're talking about 2023 bow setups, personal setups. Why, when, where, and what. More or less is what we're sitting with. I have Mr. Adam Kramer directly across from me, and John, is it Kreinbrink?
Yeah.
Nice.
Killed it.
The two most lethal archers in the industry.
Lay it on. Yikes.
So we get a lot of requests of guys want to know what exactly we're shooting, why we're shooting, when we're shooting, guys and gals. And sometimes we have to walk softly because we're not biased in this company. We get a chance. That's one of the perks of the job, to kind of shoot everything, test it out a little bit. But I understand why they want to know, because we do have a plethora of options, what we end up settling on. And we're none of us are paid. None of us, are under contract or any of that sort. So we do get to play. So we're going to, I guess, honor their request, more or less. And you guys have already, turkey season is over. It is June 1st today. You guys will probably hear this maybe this week, maybe next week. But anyways, we'll just dive right into it. We all have multiple bows, so this will take just a little bit of time. And I think we should just do one, go around the table, and then do the other one. We are all three going to have something in common, and we're all three going to have something different, completely different. And I'm glad I have you two on, because you guys will dive in and won't leave me hanging. But we need to know everything.
Oh, yeah.
Why it is. John, we might as well start with you on bow number one. And it doesn't have to be the bow that you're going to grab right away, but I assume you have, different builds for different reasons.
Oh, you got to have multiple bows. I mean, it's just wrong if you don't.
You're stylish cat, You're probably the same guy that has two different vehicles. One for the Sunday drive, one for the Monday drive.
No, that's where I don't put any money of my life into. Like, I hate vehicles. Archery,
You're smart.
I can justify spending money there. I would rather not have any vehicles, realistically.
And to tell you the truth, if you just want to take the same amount of money you're going to spend on a vehicle, put it in your living room floor, light it on fire.
Yeah.
If you're okay with that,
Same effect.
Just to give everybody a heads up, we are drinking some nitro cold coffee, I guess you'd say.
Yep. Yeah.
So if we blow up and start talking like an auctioneer real fast, that's because we're juiced.
Caffeine is a roll.
Nothing illegal, just really good. All right, boy, what's number one?
All right, so let's start with first bow. Which one should I talk about first? Well, this one's closer to me. So I got my Matthews. So I have a Phase 4 29 this year. Little bit different than what I've ran the last few years. The last handful of years, 3, 4, 5 years back or so, I've always kind of drifted more towards that 32 plus axle to axle bow. So I've run a lot of like the Waite Ultras. A couple of years ago, the Bowtech, like Revolt X in that 33 and a half inch range. I really liked that kind of bow. Last year and the year before kind of started doing more with like the saddle hunting, and I've always enjoyed going out west trying to chase mule deer around, and I really like a tall, stable bow for that. I don't care about speed necessarily on like a western hunt. But I've kind of run the same style bow for the last few years, and it was getting a little bit boring almost, and I just wanted to play with a smaller bow again. So I went with the 29 inch axle to axle in the Phase 4. Set it up pretty similar as far as what I like to run for accessories, because I'm, old dog. Yeah. New tricks don't really always go that great.
What's your draw length?
It kind of varies brand to brand, but I kind of hang out in that like 28 and a half, some brands 29, right in there. Yeah.
Poundage?
I run 70-pound mods just pinned down tight. Yep. I don't know. I'm just not enough of a man to handle the 75s over and over again. Especially with like the main Minnesota hunting that I get to do, or that I choose to do, is typically in the later time frame. So this year I probably had more sits in Minnesota from December 20th to the end of the year than the rest of the year combined.
Gotcha.
In Minnesota, a couple sits here and there in October, one here and there in November, and then late season I just Oh man, it was fun. It was cold. It was bitter, and it was just fun.
And you got to take that into consideration.
Yeah.
No matter if you're sitting in an Orion, Radek, whatever it may be, and you're even if you are somewhat heated or rigged out with Sitka, and of course we're doing some name dropping right now, but your body reacts different.
Yeah, so that's a poundage, and like kind of what I tell people when they're in the range, like, well, what poundage should I shoot at? That's a question we get a fair amount. I'm a big proponent of handle whatever the most poundage you can shoot, but comfortably. You should be able to draw from a seated position without throwing your back out of whack. You do have to remember that, you're sitting in a tree for a few hours of sedentary movement. Your muscles start to get tight. Your shoulders get tight. You might be chattering your teeth a little bit and your shoulders all hunched up. And then all of a sudden it's the moment of truth. And you don't want to be fighting your bow, fighting your poundage. Could I handle heavier mods? Yeah, I could, but it's not as enjoyable. I want to enjoy when I shoot my bow. I just don't like working that much.
Yep. And for like the archers that are advanced in the sequence, and they ask the same question, because Matthews, you have the ability to go 60, 65, 70, 75, and we max out our limb bolts. So the efficiency is there. That's what John's talking about right now. One of the things that I tell him, I said, if you cannot draw your bow slow motion without stopping or jerking, it's too much.
Yep.
So, and today with the arrow builds, and I hate to reuse the word efficiency, but you can do the same thing at 65 as you could do 75 5 years ago.
Absolutely.
I mean?
Yeah.
But okay, so phase 429.
Yep.
What color?
Okay, yeah, color. So I'm a two-tone kind of guy, right? Little, I see so many bows on the wall that we see them over and over and over and over again. I just like to make mine look a little bit different than what you'd see. So I run a black riser and then Sitka subalpine limbs. And then on my stabilizers, I am running the new bridge lock stabilizers this year. Again, just something new. I like to try the new products and kind of see if I can tell a difference, see if it helps, see if, does it make me any bit more confident or any bit better. If it does, I'm going to go that way. And I love the feel that those bridge locks give. They are extremely stiff. Like the bow points good. It aims good. For being a short, small bow, it doesn't feel like a short, small bow.
Yep.
And that's kind of been good. It did take me just a couple weeks of shooting to get used to going from that taller axle to axle to a little bit shorter axle to axle. Kind of had to be a little bit more engaged with my draw arm, of bringing that hand up tight into my anchor. So it maybe requires just a little bit more concentration on my part to shoot the bow as well. But that's good. I feel like I'm engaged when I'm shooting and it keeps me present. Oh, yeah.
Well, and it looks sharp. Those bars look sharp. And John's being modest. He, in that few weeks of getting to know the bow, he went and won our Archery Country League individual shoot down night. And so he's out there with his, Rip TKOs hunting setup, and he's shooting against target guys, and he's doing the like I said, head-to-head shoot-offs, single elimination bracket or double elimination bracket, fighting his way back, and he ended up winning. So it didn't take too long to get used to that short axle to axle.
That's why he's got the patch on his shirt.
Not quite.
So you customized it. Very, very sharp looking.
Yeah. Just something a little different.
And that's the cool thing is you can do that on those bows. You can almost do it on every bow nowadays.
Yeah, you really can.
First, obviously a little bit of money here and there, but so let's break down like what you said. You're kind of old school on your accessories.
Not necessarily old school, but like what I run for a sight is just because it makes sense for how I hunt and for where I hunt. And again,
explain that to me.
Yeah, so that's a question we get asked a lot in the shop when guys are coming in buying their rigs. Like, well, you got 1,900 different sights over here from $30 up to $1,300 for like the Garmin stuff, right? So I do a fair amount of whitetail hunting, be it in the Midwest, at home, whatever, a little bit of traveling out of state for whitetail. And then the last few years I've been doing a lot of like the plains mule deer hunting, Dakotas, for the most part Dakotas, because it's close. And you could get a tag, not so much this year. With my sight, I run, it's basically a black gold verdict descent. Okay. So very, very similar. It's basically an older version of like what one of our number one selling sights is, that custom assault that we carry. It's a 4-pin, 2-inch housing, top 3 pins, .019, bottom 010.
Yep.
And so I'm running just an older version of that sight, basically.
Okay.
I've had that for some years.
Yep.
I don't know, 4 or 5, 6 years, something like that.
And that assault that you're talking about that we customized, we teamed up with Black Gold. That design, I would say 80% of it come from you guys here in St. Cloud. The 2-inch housing, the 10 thousandths bottom pin. And a lot of people, it is our number one selling site. And it's not something that you have to push because it's kind of the best of both worlds.
Yeah. It's kind of that happy medium.
It's a driver sight
Yeah.
with 4 pins.
Yep. So I like the bigger housing because, again, for whitetail hunting, it allows me to run a slightly larger peep sight and still get like a good, not too much slop of, my peep sight around the housing up front, especially at my draw length. So I like that bigger housing. I get a little bit more light in a, low light whitetail environment. And then it's still, I get a lot of vision through that sight with a 2-inch housing and only 4 pins in it. I keep them relatively centered. I don't have them way bottomed to the very bottom where my 50 or bottom pin is floating on my level. I have a fair amount of gap between my level and that bottom pin. And then my 20-yard pin ends up, slightly above halfway in the housing, not quite to the upper third, but in that range. And it's a sight picture that works for me. It's not too cluttered to where I can see my target well, be it a deer or paper or foam, whatever it is. And then it allows me to shoot out to 50 without having to adjust anything, which covers any and every whitetail opportunity I'll ever be willing to take in my life or that I've ever had in my life, basically. And then especially with playing around in the Western stuff, like, again, like, yeah, a guy can shoot far, but like, gosh darn, does your just effectiveness and, overall killability goes skyrocketing up when you can close that gap a little closer. So I like to try to get between 40 and 50 on a spot and stock environment. And that allows me to do that without having to dial anything. Now there are different circumstances where sometimes, you do end up, driving the sight down. But with that housing, I get a lot of clearance. I think last year on the 2 bows, I have the same sight on both of my bows, actually. Okay. That's how much I like it, right? I bought one, ran it for a year, and was like, my backup bow should be the exact same thing because this just works, So I run that on both bows. But it, like last year, I think my sight tape bottomed out at like 136 with my hunting arrows.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Like I get a lot of clearance on that sucker.
Smoking.
Yeah.
What rest do you have?
So I kind of run that like QAD integrate rest. I have one that has a Matthews stamp on it. I have one that has a Hoyt stamp on it.
Yeah.
Exact same thing. But yeah, I just feel like that's kind of a hunting rest. And that's really what I do with my bows, right? Like I'm not out setting state records like Kramer over here in the paper trail.
You're winning leagues, man.
There's a little asterisk behind that one. I feel like stars aligned. I got a little lucky that night. I can admit that. Like there's some pretty dang good shooters that like the last round shooting against James, I think he went 6 rounds in a row where he didn't miss that little tiny 11 ring.
Right.
And somehow he missed it when he was shooting against me, The 2 losses he had, he threw an 8 on that target. And the rest of the night he had 11s on it. The 11 was probably about the size of a dime.
Yeah. Not very big.
That boy can shoot. And I don't know. I just got lucky.
Your bow does good under pressure.
I did let down once in that round.
You did?
I did. The second shot, I let it down and I was like, ooh, boy.
That was a good decision too.
Yeah.
Forgiveness is a word that sometimes gets overlooked when we talk about archery. You may have the most pimped out setup in the world, but if it's not forgiving, and what I mean by that, for people who are listening who don't, and Kramer, you can add to this, coming from the target background, if you fludge a shot, right? Like it shooting a hand or thumb, it just goes off and you know that you're not on target. If a forgiving setup is there, you're only missing by a ½ inch to an inch. If it's not forgiving, you're 4 to 5 inches.
Right.
Now people say, "Oh, you got to hit a pie plate, and that's all you got to do to kill a deer." Well, yeah, wrong.
Whitetail accurate.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a very forgiving setup.
Yeah.
That you've over your years of doing this, you can kind of build it.
And I've got a lot of confidence in those Matthews bows. We've set up an absolute ton of them. I've shot many Matthews bows over the years, and with their top hat system and their switch weight cams that they're running, like it's a good draw cycle. It's a relatively firm back wall that's got a little bit of give to the back end, which works well with how I like to shoot. I shoot a thumb button release and I pull through my shot with a fair amount of tension to it. So I'm not just relaxed into that valley. I'm pulling through the mods, which is how I like to shoot and how I feel like is probably a guy should be shooting.
Yeah.
But that bow just works well with my style. Really the final piece of it would just be the quiver. I run one of the Matthews Flatline removable, one-piece removable quivers, which again is a little bit different than what I did in the past. I was usually a 2-piece fixed quiver guy. That quiver sits so tight and reacts like it holds the arrows like a 2-piece quiver does, but it gives you the option to take it off, which is pretty slick because like for the most part, when I shoot and when I hunt, I'm a quiver on kind of guy. There's very few circumstances where I take that quiver off, and really the main two are going to be extremely windy days, which like, tree stand hunting necessarily doesn't happen a lot around here. Like 2 seasons ago, it did. Like I was actually bow hunting during like gun season. It was pretty blustery that week. So like when you get that 20, 25 mile an hour wind, especially if you're like in one of the spots I hunt, it's pretty exposed. There's actually very few trees to get into. So you get, no matter what direction the wind's coming from, you kind of get bucked around and you're moving, swaying really hard with it. And in those circumstances, I do like to take my quiver off just to reduce the amount of like side profile that the wind can grab. It reduces my sway a little bit. And then I do experience that like out west mule deer hunting where you deal with a little bit more wind. A lot of times, the quiver stays on for the most part, but if I've got a setup to where it works to where I've snuck in within my shooting distance on, a bedded buck, and I know I'm just like hunkered down behind a piece of sage or have a little bit of cover, and I'm hunkering down waiting for him to stand up. If it's really, really windy or like it's picking up, I will take that quiver off just to reduce how much surface area the wind can grab when you are trying to make a shot.
And that's the low pro detach.
Low pro detached, yeah.
And it's actually, so it's molded around. It's probably one of the tightest. I say one of because Tight Spot has a very tight setup as well. But it's molded around to where the limbs, clear it. I've always shot a 2-piece forever until last year.
Yeah. That thing's sweet.
It is, and it's quiet. And the thing about the arrow cradle is low enough so that you can shoot with a 2-piece. It's basically a 2-piece with a rod is what it is.
Yeah.
Arrows? Do you run the same arrow for 2 builds, or do you have 2 different builds?
I do have 2 different arrow builds.
What about on that Matthews? What are you running?
On that Matthews, I'm running just, not just, but like, it's probably one of the best hunting arrows. I've run them for the last like 4 or 5 years also. It's a Rip TKO 50 grain stock insert up front. Yep. I run a 3 Fletch setup on it with either, I've been running like the Boning 3-inch X vein for the last few years, and then I ordered up some of their Bronco veins, which is like same material, it's just a parabolic instead of a shield cut. Yep. We actually were testing that a while ago. Yeah. Adam was sitting behind behind a safe area where I was shooting past him, right? And then I was shooting a couple of one arrow and a couple of the other. They're just fletched up. The same but different, and trying to see like, which one, was one quieter, was one louder, and like it was 50-50 of like, sometimes he was telling me the X vein was quieter, sometimes he's telling me the Bronco vein was quieter, and I don't know, I just figured I'd play with them a little bit.
And that's the thing, because I run 4 Fletch a lot, and people say, well, you're adding another vein, that's more noise. The right vein, it isn't, right. And I'm a firm believer, and you guys, I feel free to argue against me. An animal, rather it be an elk or a muley or even a whitetail, which I think they're hearing in their senses, they're always like on edge.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think they're jumping a bowstring. They may look up at your shot, but they can hear coming towards them.
Big time.
Natural instinct,
yep.
In my mind. So having a quiet vein, but this day and age, honestly, like the 3 or 4 veins that we offer, I should say our prominent veins that we put on, they're going to be quiet, for the most part.
I can't tell a difference between any of them, but like, I'm not necessarily as tuned in as a whitetail.
And that's the cool thing about archery is you can cut. I mean, you can do whatever you want. Yeah. You want to be a tack shooter for a year. You want to be an AAE shooter. You want to be a boning shooter.
Yeah.
Like Dan, he comes from the same area as you and Buck. It's been boning forever. Like it was pulling teeth to get people to switch over and just try.
Yep.
But that pro
even
shop
from
we
a
offer
blazer to an X vein.
Yeah. Exactly. And blazers are still good. Don't get me wrong. They have a flutter effect. A little bit softer material.
Yep. And a little higher profile, which makes them flutter a little more, I feel like.
Yep. You said thumb release.
Yep.
You got a favorite one?
I've got a assortment, you could say.
Like everybody should.
Yeah,
you know.
I think my main release right now, the release that I have been shooting the most with lately has been the
Stan.
Yeah. Why am I blanking on
Onyx.
it? There you go. Onyx thumb button.
Left-hand edition.
Yeah. Well, ambidextrous, just set up for, lefty like myself. Yeah. So I run it in a 3-finger, relatively stiff, no travel.
Fat barrel or skinny barrel?
Skinny barrel. I wrap pretty deep. I like to get that button down deeper into my thumb.
You shoot properly.
Depends on who you ask.
Well, yeah.
But I also I have a Stan Perfex that's just a little skinnier.
Yep.
That Onyx is a little meatier, which actually, I don't have big hands, but it fits inside of like my groove of my knuckles a little bit better.
You're running a large?
Yeah. And then on that Perfex, like it fit really good, but I felt a little sloppy on like the middle finger and the ring finger where sometimes it'd be closer to one side of my knuckle, sometimes closer to the other side of my knuckle on that. Prior to that, and actually the wreath I still have in my repertoire would be a Scott Sigma. And I mean, I've had that release for like a half a dozen years, maybe more. I don't know. But like, I just know it.
Yep.
When it's just, I can pick it up. It actually hits like same as what my Onyx does. It was a little different than the Perfex. And I think the Perfex, the hook goes the opposite direction as the Sigma does, where on the Onyx, I think the hooks are on in the exact same direction, but I can lay them on top of each other, marry them up. They look almost identical and feel really similar. So
Sigma's a good release.
it's just louder.
Yeah. You could hear it on Highway 23 from here, but
I've only had that bite me in the butt one time. Just like I got in on these bucks. I was out west mule deer hunting. I got in on these bucks and like I could only get like 140 yards from where they were bedded. But just the way that the wind direction was, the way the land like laid out, it was like when they get up, they're gonna come this direction. They're gonna go to the right, and I'm to the right of them with the wind in my favor. Now I don't know if they're gonna come to the right in range or not, but like it makes sense that they would. So I was kind of set up on this little side hill, found a spot where I could get in the shade, and like wind was behaving correctly. Sat there for a couple hours, and every so often, like couldn't really see them, but you could just see antlers moving around every so often through my binos, and it's like, oh shoot, the smaller one's up on his feet. And it was earlier in the day than I expected him to stand up, and sure enough, the nicer of the two stands up, and they're kind of milling around, and they start working towards me. The little one goes through to where I could shoot. I ranged him out a few different times. The big one comes out, and he's actually closer. And so I had to like rearrange setup. And I don't know if he caught me setting my release down. The wind had just flat out died. It went from like relatively blustery, normal Dakota's conditions to like that awkward, calm, you could hear a mouse fart kind of thing. And I drew back on him, waited for him to kind of go into an opening that I had. And it just, he kind of trotted through it instead of like walking. I think they kind of caught me moving, put my rangefinder down. Part of it was just so calm. I don't know if it was like just a little noise my jacket had when I set my rangefinder down. But I was drawn back, just didn't feel good about like a moving shot on them. Let back down. They get behind cover to where I can't shoot. And then it gets to be like they're kind of working, quartering away from me, going uphill. And I got another drainage. I could kind of mirror them and try to catch back up or cut them off at the top. They were probably like 120 yards. And I disconnected my release from the string. And I've never seen bucks take off so fast in my life. Like from that distance, that ping, that release, I was like, oh crap, well this is over.
Ouch. Ouch.
Oh yeah.
Just out of curiosity, because there are some of those air quote people out there, how fast you shooting?
So I think, I double checked this right before we started because I don't care about speed. My setup is really consistent over the years. Almost any bow that I shoot it out of, I'm usually hanging between 280 and 290. On that Matthews, I think it's ripping at 287, 288, or was it 289?
Nope, 287.
Okay, yeah, we just counted it. Adam's better at remembering numbers than I am.
And the reason I ask is because black gold is super easy for a sight tape situation. You shoot a little bit lighter arrow.
Yeah, it's like,
so there's some variance.
430, 440, right in there, kind of depending on what vein is on that setup. But just a happy medium. I don't like being real heavy, especially with the Western hunting or the mule deer hunting that I like doing, a relatively flat trajectory is in my advantage when I'm shooting unknown distances. And like, I'll just err on that side. Never had any penetration issues. Shot my second biggest buck right through both shoulders. And actually I broke both leg bones too. Luckily he kind of ducked into it. Might have misjudged that distance a little bit. But yeah, it went through and through with a big old giant expandable broadhead and like still was in the dirt on the backside. So
gotcha.
At like 60 some yards.
The only thing I'm not going to ask is don't tell us your broadheads today because we're doing a podcast coming up. Yeah. There's some new stuff that some of us are trying, and then there's going to be some that people just love. So for those of you listening, closer to August, there's going to be a podcast that's strictly broadheads because in our environment of archery country, we have some fixed blade shooters and we have some mechanical shooters, and we also have some broadheads that they're not new. There's some new brands that we're going to play with, but that's a different podcast. So
no broadhead talk today.
No broadhead talk today.
So yeah, that's basically the phase 4 setup. I did during turkey season run the Matthews bridge lock sight. Also
the 5-pin.
Yeah. Yep. So I typically, now that we're talking about broadheads, I typically shoot like a decap head, right, for turkey hunting.
Yep.
And with that sight just sits in so tight to the bow, and I'm not shooting those at any kind of like distance. So it's a little smaller housing. It sits closer. I can get away with shooting that big decap and not worry about like having a blade catch that Delrin or the drive rail or anything like that. So I was running a 5-pin fixed pin sight. For the guys who are listening and have seen my bow, that is what was on it.
Yep.
Just so you know.
And it's a good point because our bows are, we show them off and people see them.
And they change. Like that's one thing I think is cool about archery is like how fluid it can be. Yep. You can run a different sight for one season or for target season, or if you're going to go do this for a weekend, you can just change your sights out, or have a whole nother bow setup like that.
Reason enough.
Big AK. What's your, don't say, it doesn't have to be your number one, but what's the first one we're going to talk about?
I think the first one we're going to talk about is my SS34, that Bowtech. Last year had a big influence on what bows I got this year. And this year was a very hard decision because I think 2023 was the year that everybody did it good.
Yeah.
And I was going back and forth between a Phase 433, a Mach 34, a longer axle-to-axle bow in general, that RX-7 Ultra I had last year. Probably one of my most favorite shooting bows, period. John had an Ultra, Buck had an Ultra. This year we didn't get one because, they came out with it again. We've been saying RX-7 Ultra for a year. It feels old, but it's still one of our best shooting bows. And we've kind of reminisced when Isaac, the part-timer, got his, or he's not part-timer, he's full-time, newer guy, Isaac, got his RX-7 Ultra, and we were all shooting it, and it just brought back memories. And but anyhow, I shot a Revolt XL last year, and I got to do my leagues with it. I shot State 900 with it. I shot field with that RX-7 Ultra. So I wanted a longer axle bow that I could use for multiple disciplines. Turkey hunt, deer hunt. I don't have any out-of-state trips besides that Wisconsin turkey hunt this year.
And for people listening, this is Adam. When you started, you worked down in Rogers, so a lot of people recognize the name Adam. For the Brainerd listeners, you've been there a couple times, but this is your home now in Waite Park. You're a tall dude. Your draw length is pretty long, 30 and a half?
For hunting, 30 and a half, 31 for target. Yep.
But so we're talking just a little bit different characteristics as far as body size. So,
right.
And then of course you have a target background. So when we're saying longer bows, you're getting a flavor of both.
Yep.
So,
yeah, which is nice having a little bit longer draw. It kind of eliminates their decisions, but it's still tough.
You got less options.
And I mean, the reason I say that is like you would have to do some black magic on a Phase 429 because max draws 30. So why mess with that? You're kind of limited a little bit on short bows, but you're probably not going to shoot a short bow all that often. I mean, you do here, but as far as for yours.
Right.
All right. SS34, what color?
Yeah, so that one I did the flat dark earth riser, and I did black limbs.
Nice.
And I got that in December, and that was when me and John, remember, we were so sick. We called in sick to work, couldn't make it. I got it that Monday. When I finally showed up, I couldn't even draw it back. I was so weak. And then by the end of that week, I was in Yankton, South Dakota, shooting the Rushmore Rumble with it. And I'm just shooting micro DVS bars and black gold dual track on there. And it just, that bow married up pretty well, shot really well, had a good time with it. But so that bow, I put the gas Ghost XV strings on there. So it's white serve, white string. And then I got a Hamsky rest on there.
The Epsilon?
Not the Epsilon. I still got the Trinities.
Okay.
And then I have now a Garmin sight on there that I had last year, put it on there for turkey hunting, and I'll have it on there for deer hunting as well. I'll have states that allow the Garmins.
Yep.
If I do decide to do a state that doesn't, I have that dual track that I can put back on there. And then going up, let's see, stabilizers. So for hunting this year, I'm not running a front bar.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Then there's a couple of things that played into that, but I'm running a sidebar. I'll never give up a sidebar. I think that's one thing that if I had to choose between the two, which I did, it'd be a sidebar just for torque and overall arrow tune and shooting. I bought one of those ultimate decoys. And I put that on my bow, so I can't run a front bar with that on there for these turkey hunts. And let's see, for a release, I'm doing the Stan, the Onyx double XL, trying out a bigger release. And then I got the heavy metal for the first time, and that's just the thumb button. Really like that. And then actually on the counter here, I got the hinge release. And
From Stan?
From Stan.
Same exact release, more or less, just a different head because it's a hinge. Yep.
And I messed around with our demonstration model, and that's the first hinge release I've ever got to shoot same point of impact as my thumb. And I really like that. Yeah. Yep. And it doesn't change anchor or anything. And I like the way that safety works, and I like how it doesn't have a click. Because for whatever reason, whenever I get that click, there's that slight hesitation, get back on target. I like just being drawback, take the safety off, roll through that shot. And it's nice to go back and forth between the two, because for hunting, I'll always use that thumb button probably. Let's see, quiver. I'm running a tight spot quiver on that one. Garmin sight. Arrows, I'm doing the VAP TKOs.
Okay, so 4 millimeter.
Yeah.
166.
Yep, with the 50 grain outsert. Overall arrow weight, I cut them a little short because I'm running that bow at 30 and a half.
Yep.
And I think they're about 450 grains with a 100 grain tip. And then whole theory behind that is I dialed back on my poundage, 67 pounds.
Okay.
But I'm performance mode. And so I'm still getting 288 for speed.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty pleased with that. But it again just goes back to that super smooth drawing bow. Because I thought if I got to draw back on a turkey or on a deer, saddle hunting now, getting an awkward position, cold weather, with the longer draw and with that poundage, I still get good efficiency. I'm happy with it. And so why run 72? I can do the same 5 pounds less.
And what he's talking about, for those of you who've never shot a Bowtech, you have the ability, it's the same mod, we just flip it completely over. Comfort mode is going to be 90% of their bows that are here for you to demo. But the performance is a little bit harsh, but it adds feet per second.
Just dumps off in the back end different. Like it's more of a hump on the back end and a shorter valley.
Yep. And on that 34, it's not nearly as pronounced.
Okay.
Especially like on the SR 350, that one, you could definitely tell. But on this one, it rolls, and the same thing was on our Volt XL. Very smooth draw. It's got a different cam. I think the SS 34 draws even smoother than the XL. But actually, I probably get better speeds than what I did on my XL, which I'm happy because this one's got another 1/4 inch of brace height, another inch of axle to axle.
Forgiving. It's
just an awesome shooting bow, and it's actually done very well in the shop. Like even for guys that say don't meet that big bow stature, you know, they're not the 6 foot plus guys, they're not 30-inch draw plus guys, but they still just enjoy shooting it and how it performs, and it works. It's an awesome bow.
So just out of curiosity, will you run a front stab come whitetail? Or is it
with
just
that Garmin on there?
Yeah.
With a little bit of that weight of that Garmin, I can be pretty accurate with it. Like I shot a 3D 2 weekends ago with it, and even out to 80 yards, you know, it's all 10 ring type stuff.
Yeah.
And what more could I want for a whitetail type hunting setup?
Yeah, I think a big reason with those Bowtechs, like they have a very different shaped riser, and there is something to the geometrics that riser has. And that's one thing that I think Bowtech, like my favorite attribute about the Bowtech bows is that when you point them at something, they point right where you point them. There's a lot less shimmy and shake to them. I think the grip sits more in line with like the rockers and the pockets. It's harder to torque that bow.
And that's one of the clutch grip.
That's a fantastic
grip. Run
an
angle, or you can run, the standard. It's very repeatable.
Yeah.
It's very thin.
Yep.
Do you wrap yours?
Well, just enough to put that trigger switch on that Garmin.
Okay.
But that's the cool thing about that grip is how it starts so slim, But if a guy does want to put grip tape on there or just a barrier between him and the aluminum, you can without getting bulky.
Right.
And it's kind of odd. Like there's a lot of pushback. When guys get that Bowtech grip, man, there's not a lot there. Well, that's because that's a proper grip right there.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like my Louisville Slugger that I had on my 1990 bow before this.
Yeah.
Yeah, we won't mention any brands, but yeah.
But I like how those and that was the reason I tried them last year. That was the first time I've ever shot a Bowtech, was that Revolt XL, and that cam system tunes like a dream. And what's cool is, I shot those X27s at Yankton, and then I shot, it was like a V-Force type arrow for league. And then now I'm shooting those VAP TKOs, and who knows, I might change up by the time fall comes. There's a lot of time. And, but to go in between those arrows is super simple with that system. And then also at the same time, if I want to run fixed heads or expandables, won't touch on which ones, but I can do all that tuning, especially at home, and it doesn't take long.
And that's just the thing for because social media has such an influence, like it or don't like it. People are now, okay, I need to tune my bow, which I applaud them.
Yeah.
Like, why have your arrow flying sideways, There's guys, and you guys see it here too, that take it to the next level. You can bear shaft tune with an Allen wrench.
Yeah.
You can broadhead tune with an Allen wrench. Besides your elevation on your rest when you're switching arrow profile, but
still done with an Allen wrench.
Well, it is, yeah. You can literally tune the living piss out of that bow by yourself.
Yeah.
A little instruction.
Wide range of tuning. And what's cool is like when you're tuning somebody on the range, or if a buddy's over at the house, you're doing a late night session of shooting and you want to just go that extra mile bear shaft or broadhead, whatever it may be, you can it makes sense to them when you're taking that Allen wrench and you can watch that cam go side to side as compared to run up to the press. I'm like, I'm putting these top hats or spacers in here. And I think it really clicks with them, even if they're not the most tech savvy type people.
Yep.
And it makes them more at ease, maybe.
Yep.
They feel like you're not doing some black magic to your bow.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty tangible.
You kind of skipped the most customized accessory that you had on that bow for your Wisconsin turkey hunt, Adam. I want to hear about that.
Okay, that's the one thing about Bowtechs. If I had to rate that bow, it'd be like a 4 or 5, just because unlike Matthews and all their sweet system building accessories, where you can build the best system with the quiver and those limb legs, Bowtech does not have a good way to keep your bow up, like a bow stand that you can shoot with on.
Yep.
And with that big turkey decoy, I thought, well, how am I supposed to call and sit down and have this bow upright and this big Tom decoy not on his side moving around? And so Jon and I got to kind of looking at it, and we're like, well, let's take a Hoyt Go stick, run that my main stab bushing, and then we cut down those standard diameter arrows I was shooting, and then we put like the little rubber stoppers on there. And so I got, you say they're 16, 17 inches.
18 probably,
Yeah, these 18-inch basically Go sticks on steroids sticking out my bow, but then I can set my bow up and leave it down. And it kind of did some Frankenstein in there, but it worked.
We had to take the rods out or the threaded rod out of that Go stick, heated them up, pulled them out, and then figured out what diameter arrow can we match them up inside. Epoxied the hell out of them.
And it stuck. It stuck. I've got them caught on branches.
It is.
Once he wanted to be able to keep that decoy up, so he had a decoy that straps on the front of his bow, for those who don't understand what that ultimate predator decoy is. And it's got a big window, like from where your arrow comes out and your sight comes out, so you can see through the center of it. And then, it takes up a lot of room, so it's like, well, we can't have anything sticking forward, and we need to get the height of these legs just right so that the decoy isn't pitched forward staring at the ground or tipped up looking in the clouds. So we kind of cut them down a few different times and played with how the bow sat. That was pretty cool.
I was going to use it in Wisconsin, but there was way too many old retired shotgunners running around that public land for me to have the audacity to put that Tom turkey on there.
That's a good point. It is a good point.
I think right on it.
It says, do not use on public land. We are not liable if you are to get shot or injured using this product.
Sure,
we'll make headlines. But no, and then like I said, that bow is just super easy to go back and forth between arrow builds, between league shooting, hunting, and especially with that Garmin it's a pro site to do the validation. It's just super slick. Super slick.
Sounds like a great setup.
What's your hunting bow this year, Wade?
Oh, you guys, I don't have to talk about mine. We still got 2 from yours. My main, or I have 2.
Well, of course you have 2, but
you already talked about the Phase 4. It's set up very similar to what you have. I mean, almost identical, but it's a 33. The only thing different is I went with the option Canyon Pounder this year.
Yeah.
And here's the reason for it. A lot of people see the price tag on that and they go, oh, man. It's virtually 2 sights in one.
Yep.
It's a single pin and it's a 5-pin.
And it's a slider.
Yep, and it's a slider.
So it's 3 sights in one.
Yes, it is. And here's the reason for it. Mr. Evans is a very, very cool guy. He's ingenuity. You guys know the backstory about Trophy Taker and then sold it off and then started his own deal. It is built better than any sight I've ever. And I love Excel. I love black gold. Absolutely love them. But this sight, literally, I could throw off a cliff and be just fine with it. I customized the pins. So I'm the guy that went all green except for my single pin is red. A lot of people don't see red, but that's where my light is. So I can light that up. Situation, if I needed to over that 60-yard mark or for turkey hunting, basically in a split second I can open up that capture cage, take away, and I have a single pin. And when you're looking, I'm right-handed. On the left side of the sight, my main sight tape is my single pin. So that's 20 through 100. It's actually more than that when I get done with it. But on the back side, I can close that lid, and then I have my 60-yard pin now goes from 60 to 100.
Yep.
So in a situation, whitetail, Minnesota, Missouri, even North Dakota, all of my pins are there for instant ranges.
Yep.
You know, even if I have to pin gap, which is relatively easy because I shoot a pretty fast setup, I can do it. Or if I needed to take a shot and I want some clarity, I just open that hood and I have my single pin.
Yeah, that's a really cool sight.
And I did get the bridge lock,
Yeah.
so I lightened it up just a little bit. It's super sleek. It's super tough. Very enjoyable sight to shoot. I haven't shot a fixed pin for a long, long time, but again, it's not just a fixed pin.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's basically the only thing different from your build is I went with a RIP SS.
Yep.
For my whitetail arrow.
Yep.
Because my other bow is going to be shooting distance. The RIP SS is the VAP SS on steroids in a 5mm. I really like that 204 diameter for componentry.
Yeah.
I like to shoot lighted nocks.
Yep.
The new Halo nocks I think are just a little bit more robust in a 5mm. The componentry. I run the standard shock insert.
How heavy did that come out to be?
So I'm a 29-inch draw on a Matthews, but I cut my arrows down to 27.
Yeah.
So is 493 grains total build.
That's a 300 spine probably.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cut short, 50 grain insert, 100 grain tip.
Yep.
And then that's your lighted knock in there also for weight.
No, that's without it. So it
Just over 500.
Yeah, just a little bit over 500.
Yeah. I do like how
but-
those Halo knocks turn on and off too.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
sweet.
And I like the fit because I like to, when I'm practicing, I don't use the AAE IP number 5. It's a little bit fat and bulky. If I was running a nocturnal, that's what I would do. AAE IP or Victory IP number 5 with a nocturnal. But I run just a little bit smaller, sleeker knock. So then this is an easy I don't have to mess with my knock sets.
Are you running an Easton knock out of yours?
Maybe.
Gold tip knock?
It's an Easton knock.
Okay.
But
Does that, I don't know why, but I feel like just those Easton knocks, if it's the fit on most bows, like center serve, the only gripe I have with those things, it seems like they will chew through a center serve faster than any other knock.
yeah, this is an Easton X knock. I've seen that on the micro. It used to be called a Deep 6 knock. I can see them eating it a little bit. I do have a set of gas strings on there. I haven't had, but I've only had maybe 200-300 shots through it. So
Okay.
I don't know yet, but I've run the Easton Ox for a long, long time, and the durability of the slim factor. Does it matter? No. I like to have as least amount of surface area, and I like to have all my energy going to a small area, rather a fat area. Does it make a difference? Absolutely not. Just like fletching your helical left or right, it doesn't make a goddamn difference.
Oh man, he said it.
But I do it. But I also run. That bow is pulling 77 pounds.
Oh, you're running 75 spinned out.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's with the gas strings. I gain a little bit more poundage. But that's where that 500 grain arrow it still works pretty good.
Oh, absolutely, especially for a whitetail setup, mainly 40 and in, and you can shoot them a lot, past that, but you should have more drop that you're dealing with.
And I say that with a grain of salt, like those longer shots, that's practice. Just to make sure. I like to tune further with my broadheads. I like to practice further, just because it's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, besides my Washington Muley, the last 7-8 years has been 40 and in. I think I took a shot at one at 42. I mean, I did, but I just don't. I set up my spots in Minnesota, North Dakota, Missouri. That's the way it is. I don't know how to say. I don't really hunt a lot of field edges early season, but if I did, I'd have a different setup probably. But yeah, it's I shoot a hinge. If I was gonna play once in a while with thumb blunt, I shoot the Ultra View.
Yeah, that's a nice feeling release.
It is. It ergonomically, it just fits. I got big old sausage fingers and mitts, and it just fits really, really nice. I love the thumb barrel on it, and then no travel.
Do you have a medium or a large?
I shoot a medium, actually.
Really?
The large just has a little bit too much room. I don't shoot with gloves on, so I don't. But I shoot a medium.
Yeah.
I run, you can see the callus, but my release is a little bit more forward than some.
Wade just held his hand out, and his index finger has, it almost looks more like a planter's wart coming out of it.
That's what I thought it was.
Oh, my goodness.
The entire time I've got
and a lot of that comes
That's got to help with consistency when you have that big bulbous thing on your finger.
Since 2016, when you run a hinge, a true ball hinge, that's where a lot of your weight is. It's always been that white line and that bump. Now that'll get cut open and bleed.
Oh yeah.
But it's a pain in the butt. But that's the way it shoots.
Oh man. You can't I can't get over that.
It's a lot of arrows. A lot of arrows.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's that's basically my rundown. Is it gonna be my primary? I don't know yet. I won't know until August. But I kind of I'm dabbling with another bow that we'll talk about in just a bit. Anyways, we got two other bows we got to run.
All right. Second bow, which in no particular order, right? The other bow I'm running this year is Bowtech Carbon 1. So I kind of went complete opposite end of the spectrum with both my bows. Typically, I was kind of one bow a little shorter, one bow longer in that 34, 35. So this year I'm running two shorter axle-to-axle bows. That Phase 429 is obviously 29 axle-to-axle. And then that Carbon 1... 30, right? There's 30 and a half. Oh boy, professionals here. We'll say 30, right? And in that 30 range. That bow has the prettiest draw cycle out of the shorter bows, in my opinion. And it actually took me a long time to decide on that second bow. I was torn pretty bad on, I had a lot of bows down in our demo range, and it wasn't a one-day decision on that one. I was playing with a PSE Fortis 30. I think if I went longer this year, I would have probably played with that Mach 34 with the EC2 cam. Oh, I like that bow a lot too. But I'm making myself shoot shorter bows this year. Part of the reason is I'm basically going to be whitetail hunting this year. I don't have an archery mule deer tag at the moment, nor will I.
Will you?
Yeah, unless somebody out there has a landowner tag. They, 28 West Division Street, attention, John, you can send that on over. But so I'm kind of running shorter bows. That Carbon 1, I shot a CP30 next to it. I had an RX7 Ultra last year. I played with the shorter RX7, and I had one already. So I wanted to change it up a little bit. Historically, I've always liked the Bowtechs, kind of how I touched on the risers of just when you point them at something. I like how the grip fits. It's narrow, as Adam touched on with his Bowtech. The deadlock system is extremely tunable. We touched on that and everything. It is a heavier carbon bow. I also had one of the bows I was comparing and contrasting to was the Elite Era. A little bit. That one's more in that 32-inch axle-to-axle range, and not that that's a make it or break it for height or anything on it, but I didn't know what I wanted, and it took me a while to decide on it. So there was a lot of bows that I shot in comparison. I do like a heavier bow setup, and that's one thing that on my RX-7 Ultra, I ran not only their shorty stab that it comes with. I ran a 6-inch bar out of the lower position with extra weight added to it. I ran an 8-inch bar out the back. even though it's a carbon lightweight bow, I wanted that weight up there to get it to hold on target how I wanted to. So that's one thing that I do like about the Bowtechs. I actually don't have to add as much weight to my stabilizers because it's a little bit heavier than the other carbon bows are right out of the get-go. And it just fits. It feels good. It's got a wicked good draw cycle. I'd say it has a firmer back wall than what my Matthews has, with those bigger pegs that it has. Like when you hit that back wall, you can keep pulling. It doesn't have that extra squish that the Matthews does to it. So the tunability that thing has, super smooth draw. I feel like that's going to be, like that later season. I like a carbon bow for tree stand hunting. Just like, I'm not careful. I should be, but like you tap your bow into your stand, you hit your saddle platform as you're walking up to it, you're pulling your bow up. That carbon bow does not resonate sound when you tapping into something, be it metal or wood or whatever in your tree stand, the way that an aluminum bow does. It's a lot duller and it doesn't ping or it doesn't have like an unnatural sound to it. So that's one thing I really like about the carbon rigs. And then again, being getting to do a lot of my stuff late season, the temperature factors, it sounds kind of sissy-ish, but like it's there.
Yeah,
it is there
absolutely.
for sure. And like until you have one, it's hard to demonstrate, it's hard to verbalize that to somebody when they're like, well, just buck up a little bit or have a hand warmer in your pocket. But it's like,
no, yeah, because the situation I love and I hate when people say that, oh, does it really matter? If you have a deer target animal coming in and it's 60, 70 yards coming in, sometimes that takes 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You hang on to that bow minus 30 degrees. It doesn't even have to be negative 40. Just let's say it's 10 degrees. Good luck.
Right.
Because you don't want to move.
Well, even just carrying it around.
Yeah.
You're holding on to this cold riser and you're constantly switching hands because it's just a cold brick.
And typically late season, you're dealing with so much less cover in your tree stand environment, that you don't get away with the kind of movement that you can get away with in October, late October, mid-October. A dude and a blob of a dude off the side of a bare tree with no leaves left on it. Like, you don't get away with as much. You got to be a little more fickle about your setups there. That bow I also have a set of VAP SS's that I run. I haven't decided which arrows I'm going to shoot out of that bow yet. I have shot both. I've played with both. I've shot broadheads on both of them already. They both pipe them right where they're supposed to when I tune it that way. There's a little bit of a speed gap there. It's not a lot. I think that one's running at, it's like a 9 foot per second difference. So my Matthews is 287. So then that one's 279, right? Yep. Yeah. 279 with the same arrow, cut the same, all that kind of jazz. I do run the Bowtech at a 1/2 inch longer draw length. So I have that at 29 and my anchor lines up the same. Could just be how the shallowness of the grip or if it's heeled out a little bit more. But it's smooth. It's quiet.
It's a tack driver too.
Yeah. And I don't know. I really liked my RX-7 Ultra. Don't get me wrong. That was an awesome shooting rig. I like the draw cycle better on the Bowtech. I like the tuning system a little bit better on the Bowtech, but I still really like that RX-7 Ultra. Like I can't say yet if I liked one better than the other. I just don't have enough rounds through my Bowtech.
Same QAD rest or virtually same?
Well, virtually the same. This one says Hoyt on it. So same thing there. Same sight, that black gold 4-pin 2-inch housing driver. And then I'm running a longer front bar. I think it's like 12 inch with a little bit of weight added to the front. And then I have one of the old KO caps from the 365 stuff that I add to the front of that. And that's literally there as just like an extra handle. When you throw your bow over your shoulders, if you're hiking around out west where you don't have tree cover that you're ducking underneath, it's just a super effective, efficient way to carry your bow. Your strings don't get as beat up by like the grass and all the stuff that's coming up from the ground's got like sharp abrasive edges. When you can carry your bow above that, your strings don't get as torched in a week of hunting as like if you carry it down by your side.
Yep.
Yeah. So that thing's sweet. I dig that bow.
What color?
So I did a smoke riser with black limbs on that one. So it's gray through the center, black limbs out on it. Currently still just has stock strings on it for the moment, but
tight.
We'll see what happens there.
All right. So we're going to continue with this podcast, but just so everybody knows, we're opening the doors here in Waite Park. Maybe one will step away, maybe not, but we're just going to keep rolling because this is a good podcast. We talked about a bigger peep. You run a quarter?
Yeah, quarter-inch peep sight, 2-inch housing.
Like a rad peep or a OMP?
I just run like the regular rad aluminum peeps. I don't and I'm not a big fan of that longer tubular style. Again, I just don't shoot like the target stuff. I'm not worried about light baffling. I want as much light through that thing as possible so that I'm not cutting out legal hunting time on overcast days, rainy days, yucky days out there where like your light fades a lot quicker.
That's a good point. And that's, people ask.
Yep.
Especially when you have a 2-inch housing. I assume maybe I shouldn't assume. Do you line up your peep aperture with your scope ring?
Well, I actually have a little extra there. So again, like you shoot inside, you shoot at high noon or whatever. Like if I look through my peep, I see probably, half the thickness of like your index finger all the way around it. I don't center that. I actually line up the top of what I can see through my peep to the top curvature of my sight housing, and it stays the exact same even when I dial it down then. So I have a consistent point where the top two hoods ring up to each other and I see extra on bottom. And that's it's something I can do consistently. And again, I see a little extra. I would rather see a little extra because as light fades, you get worse lighting conditions. You don't see as much through that peep sight as what you do when you set your peep at high noon or in a good lighting, in a shop when you're shooting. So these guys that want it married up absolutely perfect, all well and good if you're only shooting in the middle of the day. And I get it. I understand why, but I've always been the guy that like, I would rather see just a little extra. Even if we go back to like the bows I shot in high school, right? Like, I don't know if you can remember, Adam might remember this, or Wade, I know Brandon will remember this, but like the blue, I think it was a Venom peep sight. They were blue. They had like a latex clear tube. I drilled that thing out bigger than what it was, like you got to be real careful because it was already installed in my string. I didn't have a bow press at this time. So I got my drill going, and I'm like, I better not, sneeze or something while I'm doing this.
Oh, I love it.
But little extra. I don't know. It works. Still just plenty accurate or as accurate as I need to be.
You're on a tight spot on that Bowtech?
I will, yeah. I've got a couple of tight spot quivers from years gone by. So that's kind of the one thing. I don't have it sitting on there right now. Is it sitting over there? Because both the tight spots I have, one's a subalpine and one's like a real tree edge. So they don't look great on there, but they'll work just fine for hunting.
Sure.
Heck yeah, dude.
Yeah. And then, of course, southpaw.
Lefty.
Yeah.
I won't hold it against you.
So
Is that because you're eye dominancy or just because you're left-handed?
Straight up eye dominancy. I can't write my name with my left hand.
Really?
Yeah, it's brutal.
And then, if you are getting a new bow or if you're young, that plays a lot into it.
Yep.
If you can't see, you can't shoot.
Had that discussion with a lot of folks in here is like dad brings kid in and, shoot, he's going to be a lefty. That means I can't hand my bow down to him. Realistically, in 10 years, Junior ain't going to want your bow anymore. By then there's going to be other stuff out there too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Adam, number two.
Number two, kind of unique this year. This is the first year that I don't own a legit target bow. Like one that if you went to a bow manufacturer's page, you went to their target bows, it'd be listed on there. I really like that Waite binary cam system. Yes, they did come out with that on their Stratus models. But I wanted something that I could take my accessories, my RX-7 Ultra, like my stretch quiver, my Picatinny rail bracket, and put onto. And that there basically narrowed it down to the high line. And 36.5-inch axle to axle on that bow. That one there's got an 8-inch brace height. I got that one set about that 30.5, 31, just kind of depending on situation. Got an 8% let off. I did the bourbon, that new color, the love or hate kind of color. And when I got bourbon riser with the black limbs. And I've been in love with it ever since.
Yep.
Ever since. Everybody likes it except Jake for whatever reason. He sees that bow, he said that thing looks ugly, but everybody else loves it. Maybe they're just telling that.
Jake still wears the same socks he did in high school.
Right.
He doesn't like change.
And I've seen people do that bourbon up in different ways. Isaac, he got that RX-7 Ultra with the black riser, bourbon limbs. That is downright gorgeous. Downright gorgeous.
The best looking bow I've seen this year out of anybody's.
Yeah.
Anywhere.
Is it here?
Yes.
Is it really?
No, he took it home.
I would too, because I'd be afraid of somebody stealing that. Yeah, no, that thing's a stunner. But yeah, then I did gas strings on that. I did all flow yellow.
Okay.
Because I set up a guy with an RX-7 Ultra, or RX-7, he did bourbon, and then I did all the rest ties and things like that in yellow, and that looked sharp. So I did all flow yellow on that with black serving. turned out real well. Doing a Hamsky Trinity rest on that one. And then right now I have an Excel Achieve XP with an UltraView, single pin fiber. Actually end up putting a dot over the fiber for field shooting. It's got a 6-power lens in there. That bow's at 70 pounds. And that's what I shot league with, 5-spot. That bow at 70 pounds draws like 60.
Yep. It's a very, very cool bow.
It's incredible how buttery smooth that thing is. Been really, really pleased with that. And then let's see here. And that one I'm running the specialty peep. Mm-hmm. The specialty peep with
the old school or the podium?
It'd be the podium. Yep. Now, again, I'm going to use it as like a backup hunting bow.
Yep.
And so that one I'll have an OMP retina. That's what I've been running past couple bows. I've been really happy with that.
Yep.
It's kind of got that hourglass shape. It's a strong light peep. Probably run a 3/16 on there if I'm going to run that dual track. Let's see here. And then got the ghost sticks on there. Don't have to Frankenstein them on that one. Thank goodness. Those are just super handy. And then I've been running what I call thunder sticks. So I got a micro DVS. It's a 15 right now, but I'm having to make me a custom 20 on that new V2 setup. And I'll run that with a 10-inch sidebar. And for outdoors and that wind, they just seem to cut, but they still hold good. And I like that. So it's kind of like a little bit more of a hunter looking setup to it.
Yeah.
But, in arrows, I'm running Rip XVs. This is the first year I've ever ran Rip XVs. Just kind of want to see what those are all about. They're 300 spines. And then I put the 75 grain outserts on there with 100 grain tips. So they're about 420 grains, and they're running about that 282 feet per second. And so out of a bow that it's not necessarily a fast bow at my draw length, but it's fast enough for what I'm doing with it. But just a super forgiving bow on that.
Will you shoot sectionals or field with that?
Yep. Yeah, I already shot a field shoot with it actually, and I've already probably done like a half dozen 3D shoots with it.
Perfect.
Been pretty pleased with it. Like I said, I shot indoor 5-spot league with it, and just with standard diameter arrows, averaging that high 50x, 50. I shot 160 with it, a couple 58s.
Well,
just
Adam,
standard diameter.
Let's face it. You could take a diamond edge and shoot high 50s. I mean,
well, they don't make that in bourbon, so.
We're talking to a guy that shoots, I wouldn't say for a living, but if there's a guy in the shops that could compete with anybody out there, it's Adam. And he does all of this with a button. Do you shoot that with a hinge?
I've been messing around with the hinge.
You go back and forth?
Yeah, but it's primarily been a button.
I bet it holds like a dream.
It does. Yeah. An 8-inch brace sight, it's kind of crazy because I haven't shot a bow with that long of a brace sight since my Martin Firecat back in 2005. Just because there's not many bows out there that got a brace. Even the target bows only have like a 7, which they still shoot like a longer brace. But those long draw bows, man, they get bracy.
Well, they have to.
Yeah. I mean,
cams are only so big.
Right. But I've just been pleased with that HBX system, whether it's on like a VTM style or their RX-7 Ultras. They tune well. They draw nice. They're good cams.
Absolutely. That's pretty interesting difference, I guess you could say. I think people get the idea that, you can play with anything and everything, but having the ability and just saying that. So there's a lot of listeners out there that aren't going to have 2 bows, but there's so many different, heads on shoulders at the pro shop. Like we're unfortunate we couldn't have Buck on this morning. But the bow setups here in Waite Park, they vary so much. You go to Rogers, they vary so much. You go to Brainerd, where we have the 2 Paul Bunyans that work for us, they Frankenstein the shit out of some stuff up there. But, they shoot very well and they can play. And Jason, not pointing out any names, but he'll go through 5 or 6 before he gets it narrowed down.
Right.
I play a lot because we can. Yeah. My second bow, it's going to dial down to one of 2, but it's in the PSE family.
Yeah.
It's either the Mach 34 or the Levitate. The Levitate is set up. The Mach 34 drills right now. I kind of played around in the bow hunter class a little bit. I wouldn't have shot a PSE if you would have paid me until
A few years ago.
they're tunable.
Yeah.
Now, especially this year.
220 system for
Yep.
shimming. Yeah.
And then the EC2 cam, like I didn't really get along with the S2 cam at all. The old Evolve cam is probably one of the smoothest out there for PSE. But they made this EC2 cam where we could still get pretty good speeds.
Yeah.
But it's very, very enjoyable to shoot. I hate to say it because I'm not a short bow guy. The Levitate's not short, but that bow holds. That bow shoots. That bow is smooth, and I'm running a pretty light arrow, 425 grains. I don't really have a sight tape, that stretches out, and that's going to be a dual pin. So I have instantaneously 20 and 40, and it's the first bow I've had in a long time where it's exactly 20 and 40 on the setup. And then my sight tape, shooting 316 feet per
Holy
second.
mackerel.
Yeah, that's boogie.
But I took a super light carbon bow and I weighted it properly.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I have a light sight, but I have I have a 15-inch and a 10-inch stabilizer. It's just something about the grip. I don't know.
Yeah.
I love the finish on it. That bow is gray, all gray. I kind of did the knock-on look. I got flow green strings.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. It opened my eyes a little bit. The 34 is really, really cool. I haven't decided.
Every one of those 34s that I set up, like when I set them up, tune them, it's like, gosh, I kind of want one of these. Like, I kind of want one of these really bad.
It's on next year's radar for sure. For sure.
But that's basically running. I do a lot of things with the target background. Like I run a different D loop than most. I run Nox that's a little bit different than most. Not contrary to I loved how you did your peep deal, and there's reason behind it, right? I run a super small peep all the time. Some reason my eyes, the way things work, is completely opposite than most. I don't line up an aperture. I center my pin in my peep. So I run a little bit different anchor just because I'm a little bit bigger faced, rounder faced. It's different anchor than most guys. But I'll center my pin. It doesn't matter if it's at 80 or if it's at 20. I don't have to set my peep sight for like that magical 40-yard distance, because I'm always centering my pin. I don't worry about the aperture size. My peep shrinks in super bright light. My peep grows in just the way that my eyes work. And I've talked to hundreds of different people, and it's opposite of most. I don't know why it is. Now, is there a situation, low light, rainy day? I'm not going to be able to shoot for 10 minutes like Jon will, or, you're kind of in the middle of that. Like Dan runs a 1/4-inch peep, doesn't matter what it is.
He's a straight up killer. That's why.
I mean, he can see through that thing at 10 o'clock if he needed to.
Can you see the outside of your housing yet?
So I run Ultra View scope
Yeah.
on that particular setup, and I can see the inner torque ring, but I can't see the outside of the
On a 31 or the XL?
for
Housing.
the
Housing size.
Yeah.
just the standard 31. Yep.
Oh, so it is small.
Yep. Everything's small. Everything's small. Now the option is different. I had to step up in peep sight.
Yeah.
Just a little bit for that. That's a 3/16.
Yep.
But I'm running super small, a Hamsky Raptor peep. And then I really love the OMP peeps. I think they're really, really nice. They hold up really well. But that bow there, it took me a little bit to figure out an arrow with it. I didn't want the super light, 380 grain, because I am a believer in FOC to a point, not extreme FOC, but I believe in it. So getting an arrow shaft that works where I can run, 150 to 175 grains up front. I don't shoot anything but 100 grain broadhead for the simple fact is if I don't want to, I'm not a fixed blade guy. Again, August we'll talk about the podcast coming on.
Don't be slipping on broadheads here now, Wade.
I do not skimp on accuracy, and sometimes it hinders me a little bit. I've been in some low light conditions. 2 years ago, my niece shot that super nice 8-pointer. I had that deer at 37 yards a week before that. 1/4 and 2 would have took that shot 9 days out of 10. That day, I could not see him. I could see him if I would have rednecked and went over my peep or under my peep. But, and it was legal light. I had 5 minutes left. I couldn't do it. So did it hinder me? would have been my biggest clean 8-pointer ever. But he's on someone else's wall. And I mean, good for her, stayed in the family, but that's where it hindered me a little bit.
See, and that's what I'm not willing to like compromise on, just because like that's mainly what my bows are set up for. Just I'm here to hunt with them, you know?
Yep. And that bow probably won't be, if it is going to be in tree stand in Minnesota, Missouri, I'm going to change some stuff.
Yep.
That bow I set up for one state, and that's North Dakota. That's just what it is. Usually not going to shoot super early morning and not going to shoot late in the evening. My hunts are going to be, from that 9 o'clock until, because a lot of it's spot and stock, or I'm in a transition to where they're getting out of their bed to go to a feed source. I'm there, or they're coming back later. So
what model arrow did you say?
On that one?
Yeah.
So that is that's a standard VAP TKO. It's a different insert out that we sell them. It's Ethics.
Yep.
So it's a different outsert system.
What weight of the outsert? What weight is that? 50 or
50? Yeah, as of right now, I only have 5 of them built.
Sure.
I kind of, we live in this awesome spectrum of the pro shop, and we get a lot of cool stuff for free here and there. But them are literally arrows that were in the back. You know our shop. There's a big old 5-gallon bucket of arrows, and there's like 5 that matched. And I went, let's just try it.
Yeah.
But we're, just so everyone's clear, the Matthews is ready to go. The Matthews I could go hunt tomorrow. I'm still in the, I don't know what I'm running quite yet. It won't be that arrow probably.
I think that's what a lot of guys don't understand, that like, okay, we work here and everything, but like a lot of times our bows aren't, your bow is ready way sooner as a customer than what ours are.
I feel more confident with a customer's bow when it comes to August than I do my own.
Yeah. So like a lot of us have to do all of our broadhead tuning. Like we get our strings broken and everything. And then like pretty much all like my bows, I get broadhead tuned in July, and then they got to be ready by then. Cause if they're not, we kind of run dark to dark in the shop a lot of days to where like we can't go out and shoot broadheads at 50 yards. Cause by the time we get home, or by the time we're leaving home, it ain't light out. We can't be shooting.
As fast as that bow shoots, I'm probably going to go to a 5mm or a 204.
Yeah,
probably. That has an Epsilon rest on it. The Matthews has the QAD, so we dabble, but we dabble between it. I don't know yet what it's going to be.
Do you run that core mount then on that PSC for the Epsilon?
Yep.
That's cool. That's a really cool setup.
Sleek.
It takes that side bracket off. It lightens. The Epsilon isn't the lightest rest in the world. It's not the heaviest by no means, but it keeps it behind the riser. 5 years ago, if you'd asked me, did it matter? It didn't. But now the ingenuity behind the grip, if you take a laser level and run it right down the center of your riser, the more stuff that you can put on that line, the less stuff you got to worry about. People don't worry about torque. That's fine. I do, that's the only negative thing about that bow is I have to run a removable quiver at the moment, because, I would like to have the low pro design or the 2-piece on it. I can't get one to work componentry wise at the moment. I'm still going to play with some stuff, and there's nothing detrimental about a tight spot. I just remove it. I don't really shoot without a quiver.
What's that? Is that Altus quiver?
Ultra, the Mountain View product.
Yeah. Have you tried that one on that thing?
No, I haven't actually even seen it. To be true, also.
Oh, really?
You guys have them?
Yeah. Super lightweight, carbon design. Like that's a pretty legit
Did we just
quiver.
get them?
For a couple months, maybe a month or two.
It didn't show up in Rogers.
Maybe take a peek. We'll take one off the shelf, send it down there with you. Play with that today.
Because when you're in North Dakota, you're whitetail, right? And
that's tree stand? Tree stand and spot and stock. We have so early season. The way that this chunk of land works is we have one irrigated alfalfa field. There's not a tree within 600 yards of it.
Right.
But there is a ton of cattails. And there's also round bales. So you can get into some of the biggest velvet bucks. I haven't killed one, but I know the guy's going to be listening to this. You're basically still hunting spot and stock. You do a lot of prep work. We don't hunt mornings early season because we're hunting the day before Labor Day at noon is when we can start. A lot of evening hunts. So you're patterning these deer like a whitetail hunter should, but you're hunting them kind of like an out west situation. You're not putting on miles, but you're that idea of things.
Right.
The problem is those bucks are not stupid. And where you think you got a 30-yard chip shot, some days it might be 60. Now, I'm not sitting here and saying that you should pound one over 60 yards, but if you're confident in your equipment and it's low wind, that's the food source they're going to be on for the month of September. So that's how we hunt them. As we move, the rut time, yes, we're in them cottonwoods bedding area. Yep. That's tree stand. Then you could run the math. You can run anything, You can bait in North Dakota. We don't, but you could. You could take your situations a little bit more at hand. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't know what I'm running. The Matthews is going to be ready to rock. It is. I really love those Bridgelock stabs. I got a 12 and a 10.
Yep.
Way more secure. Us three standing here, we've had every stabilizer ever made, from 365 to AAE to, Matthews, even their flat lines. Taking a carbon rod, putting an aluminum cap on it with a stainless steel. We've said it on every podcast. There's vibration, there's noise, there's residual stuff going on there. Now we have a chunk of aluminum attached to a chunk of aluminum.
Yeah, just rigid.
Yep,
well, it is. No quick connect, too.
Exactly.
Spin loose, and also, gosh darn, now I got to get a big Allen wrench,
which we don't carry a quarter.
Yeah. And you're trying to get that thing spun tight, or you got your wristling going on, and just get rid of that.
Absolutely.
Do you run a wrist sling on any of your bows?
Yeah, not a wrist, well, parachute cord.
Yeah,
is what it is.
Some kind of a wrist sling, though.
Yeah, that's one thing. I'm glad you brought that up. The Matthews will not move. So I'm the philosophy, like, your left arm cannot move after your shot. That's the most important part of your shot sequence, right?
Are you talking about a lefty or a righty?
your bow arm.
Okay.
So when you're hanging onto that bow and you execute a clean shot and it goes, if you move your left arm, if you drop away, like that's in a hunting world, you're not going to see it. But Adam, you can test this. You've shot target as well, like over here. If you're trying to hit that dime, you move 32nd of an inch, that's half inch to 2 inches down south. So the PSC has a little bit of wow. It goes away from you. It kind of gets, so I got to hang on to the Matthews. It blump. Yeah. It's the smoothest, quietest. I have no clue what they're going to do how do you get better than that? I don't know, unless they come out with a carbon.
You got a wrist sling on yours, Kramer?
I had one on my Bowtech for League, and then I took it off just because when I put a sling on, I'm doing like a D loop, but I make it pretty snug. So that way it kind of works like as a sling, where that bow's getting caught by that sling. Because I used to have that when I first started shooting them Trinities, where it gouges the top of my
when you were
wrist.
Shooting them on that Elite.
Yep. And then ever since then, I'd run it so snug that at full draw, it barely had enough pressure. But as soon as that shot broke, boom, it'd like catch that bow. Well, to get your hand in a hunting situation, it was imperative. And then like spotting, stalking turkeys, things like that, I just got rid of it. But now I probably should put one back on my Hoyt.
Speaking of little trinkets, I'm glad you brought that up, like wristling. Sight lights. On the sights you guys are running, do you run one?
On my first black gold that I bought, that slider, 4-pin slider, I put a light on it. And then I think I bought my matching version of that sight like a year later. Mm-hmm. I don't have a light on that one.
Yep.
And then I've actually never used a light on the one that I have.
Okay.
It's like I have it on there as like an insurance policy, but I have hunted states where you can't have them.
Yeah.
So you just have to be, ahead of the game on that, know the laws, know the regulations, where you're going and follow them. It's not worth having.
The reason I asked, and you have a Garmin on your hunting bow, so.
Wow, and those black golds pick up moonlight so well, I don't have to worry about it.
That's what I was going to say. So the Ultra View, as of now, is phenomenal. Minnesota, it's just fine. Missouri, you're okay. That bow is probably meant for North Dakota. That's where the dual track will be.
Yeah.
So same thing with the state of Washington last year. I had to take the Ultra View off and go. I had to find something similar. The dual track is an amazing sight.
Yes.
But there, you don't, and I'll stand here and argue with anybody. You don't need a sight light.
Unless you're in a blind, maybe.
Even then,
maybe.
like turkey hunting,
they're so bright.
You keep it so dark in that blind. Maybe like in a like a box blind situation, that's where I think a light is more important than anything else. Or like early season, you're hunting an alfalfa edge and you're still in a full canopy of trees where like all the light cuts out. You go 10 yards into the woods, it's dark. Outside of that, you got a half hour of shooting light yet.
Right.
That's where I think a light is more imperative. But even like turkey hunting in the spring, I've always been able to see my pins at or before legal shooting light on, you know, now we keep windows probably a little more open than, you know, I would when I was deer hunting too. So there's an asterisk behind that.
True.
Ambient light, the fiber optic system on those, they just pick it up somehow. I'd say it adds 3 to 5 minutes over some other sites.
Yeah. Depending on time of year, like you said, there's
it's changing without you having to change it. With that photochromatic dampening, there's so many times where, say you dim down like a rheostat sight, you're dimming it down because you're going out in the afternoon, your pin's super bright. Well, you get to think, or you're out there hunting and you don't think about it. Forget, and all of a sudden it comes critical time and you have that dimmed down yet where that black gold's constantly changing throughout the evening without you having to make it.
Yep. We didn't talk. Any of you guys running the bow spider? Are you going to dabble with it?
I might. I've seen them on customers' bows and like understand it. Kind of depends on where you end up putting it on the rig. I think for certain situations, it's a super useful product.
Yep.
I'm not a big fan of carrying my bow on my pack at all when I'm out west, which is contrary to popular belief. But like if it's shooting light, I want my bow in my hand.
Absolutely.
I've had too many circumstances where like you think you're just covering empty ground to get back to where you think the deer are. You come over a little rise and like, holy cows, Big Louie is right underneath me inside a shooting range. Now, if I have to get back over the peak of that hill, take my bow off my pack, that's where I guess the bow spider would be more convenient because you can just take it off your pack. It's ready to go. Unlike when you strap one into your pack, you got to take your pack off, undo your latches, try to not make any noise. That bow spider, you just pick it right up.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pluses to it. You know, if you don't want to case your bow and put it in the back seat of your truck, you can hang it. You're Mr. Exodar. So, you know, like we watch some of those videos, you have it packed. Yeah. There's certain situations, but it's an opportunity. You know, you can add a lot of stuff to these bows. You're going to use it all the time. Like you said, the Hoyt Go sticks. Absolutely. Matthews has the engaged limb legs. Absolutely. Except the tree stand. You know,
sweetest system out there.
A lot of people don't think about practicing during the summer. Lay that bow in the grass, lay it on the picnic table, something happens. You know, just eliminate that.
Right.
I just worked on a bow the other day that, like, I can tell what happened to it. The customer really had no idea what happened to it. But, like, that bow got ran over, hands down. His rest was smashed all the way out. Like the axle was pushed out all the way to the side. His sight was pushed all the way out. His top cam had this sweet S curvature going to it. You know, you put that on an engaged limb leg, it stands up, or, you know, whatever brand bow it is, you put it on some kind of a stand to where the bow is upright. You've just eliminated that possibility from happening. You know, as careful as you can be, whatever, like, stuff still happens when you got your buddies, especially if your buddies are kind of yahoos, you know?
Well, and just, you hear that, my buddy backed over my bow. I had it setting on a tailgate or whatever it may be, or behind the tailgate of the truck, and he backed over my bow. That's the thing about those limb legs is, that's why I wanted to put those Go sticks on that Bowtech so bad. It's just, when you're going to uncase your bow, you can set it down. You have to lean it up against your vehicle so it slides and puts a big scratch. You don't have to put it on the hood of your vehicle to where it slides. You know, you're crossing a fence, you can set it down. If you're turkey calling, like in Wisconsin, that worked really well, where I had that bow sling, that Sitka bow sling. I would drape that over my side. I had my pack on my back, bino harness, and I'd just have that slung over to protect my string so it wasn't rubbing on my chest and just gnawing at them. But I could stop, I could call, and my hands were free. Well, it'd be really nice if, say I had a turkey a couple 100 yards away, like when I'm putting a stock on, if I could have those limb legs to set that bow down, call, put back in, pick my bow back up without having to pick anything off. And that was like on that stock last night with those Go sticks on that Bowtech. Well, I got caught on something. Next thing you know, that's coming loose. Where like with those limb legs, they're just on, they're rugged, they're not coming off whatsoever. And then when it comes time to shoot, you can shoot.
Yep. And remember, we're recording this June 1st, so yesterday was the last day of turkey season. That's where Adam's going with that.
They're gobbling this morning pretty good, too. But
of course. They all pop out this morning.
I seen a strutter on my way to work, and I was like, you bugger.
Yeah, so I slept out in the tent last night, and even sleeping on the tent, you could just hear them just firing off. And I said, you sons of guns.
You did have a good turkey season, though.
It was fun. It was very fun. And going to Wisconsin was an eye-opener. And turkey season's one of those things where I get more fired up in next year. I'm going to try and do a Kansas, Nebraska archery-only tour, like first part of April, last part of March. Yeah. I'm going to do Wisconsin again, and I'm going to do Minnesota. But I've just had a blast.
You know what's so fun to see, John, is so Adam made this transition. He always been a hunter, right?
The right kind of transition, not not the 2023 transition.
Slept, breathed target archery.
Yeah, like just shooting.
This son of a gun would run 12 hours for a scramble in wherever, 6 hours to Green Bay for 8 hours of shooting. Now we're starting to see that hunting bug is bit pretty. I mean, it doesn't sadden me, but the dude's shooting a hunting bow for target and he's beating me.
Yeah, he's beating everybody with it. Are you kidding me?
But it's cool to see.
Well, it's kind of the thing that like probably shop to shop changes a little bit, but like we're constantly talking about, tags. Where did you apply? Where did you buy points? And like, it's just a year round conversation.
Yeah.
This time of year, it's kind of an off time for a lot of guys right now. A lot of guys in Minnesota who are outdoorsmen, sportsmen, bow hunters. I mean, you got guys that are running up north. They're going to the cabin. We got lakes country not that far from here. So you got a lot of guys that fish and everything too. But this time of year is super fun because when you do see guys that you haven't seen since hunting season, we get to reminisce about, hey, how did your hunting season go? What did you shoot? How did it go? Everything work right for you. But then this time of year, the conversation is, hey, did you draw any tags? Where'd you pull a tag at? Did you apply here? Did you get a point here?
Yep.
And just when you're around that all the time, and that's what your coworkers are excited about, all of a sudden you kind of get excited about it, and you kind of get that bug bit a little bit, and you have a couple of turkey hunts in a row like Adam has had the last couple of years. Like he's fired up about the birds.
Yep. Now that that's over, it'll transition.
I think you're doing first out of state deer hunt this year, maybe.
Yeah. Yep. Going to Missouri. Actually, got invited to go with a group of guys.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Because we do have the 2023 hunting competition.
Oh yeah, that's.
I thought we were going to take a year off.
No.
Well, we edited the rules.
Are we going to draft teams this year?
Did you talk to them about it?
The draft has happened.
It's done.
You've been drafted, my son.
What? There's only two teams. There's two captains, Wade and Alex.
Wade just referred to himself in the third person.
Yeah.
I like that.
So the two shit-talking, texting comrades.
The meme slinging sons
two
of guns.
Completely opposite guys in the world. Then they actually decided this.
Yeah.
But we have two teams. 7.
Is this what that meeting was about? You guys spent an entire day just talking about what we're going to do for a competition?
The last hour
draft analysis. We had to watch ESPN 8 The Ocho to get statistics and everything.
So the draft is made. We're going to have a podcast just on this.
What round did I go in? That's all I want to know.
Third.
I think everyone's in the first round, technically.
Yeah. It was every other.
Feels so much better.
I don't know. Adam's not on our team, though.
That's true.
Yeah.
You guys are on a team?
Yeah.
When you get drafted,
Well, good thing you didn't draw those tags. You're part of the 78% of people that did.
They didn't ask who had what tags before they started drafting.
So I'm on Alex's team, right?
Yes.
Well, hopefully he shoots 9 does or whatever it is.
He will. The thing is 3 of your teammates have Missouri tags.
Oh, baby.
Jake, Jen, Adam.
We got Jake and Jenny? Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting, but it's cool that I think we're only doing 2 teams. There's a little bit less like shop to shop animosity going on.
We're bringing back, like, you set up a shop to shop competition or a hunting competition a while back, and it was fun.
It's so when we say competition, this is more so just to like, even though we all work for the same company, we don't necessarily see each other very often. You guys are mainly in the Rogers store, we're mainly here. The Brainerd boys are mainly up there. So when it originated, it was a way to like, I want to hear how Dan's hunt went. I want to hear how Jason's hunt went up north. I want to get a picture right away instead of like, you come into the shop, you don't know where other guys are hunting, and all of a sudden people are like, oh yeah, Jason killed a really nice one 3 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't know that. No one told me, So it's kind of cool.
Last year we did it, and it was just a little bit skewed. I will admit it was
got out of hand. Kind of.
It did. We bent the rules a little in every situation, but this year it's cut and dry. We're going to bring back that camaraderie.
Yep.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be, and we're going to do some stuff different this year on podcast. Reason being, like, it's not going to be all product push. We're going to get more in depth with the people, like, you know, the true bow technicians, pro shop guys. We're going to talk about this competition in depth. You know, we're going to have some trash talking a little bit back and forth, but we're also, you know, we can't give you the details, but there's a hunt that some of us are going to be on. Probably not me, but the guys are, but we're going to do a podcast, like a live podcast day to day. So if it's 5 days, there'll be 5 podcasts. So you get hooked on the first, if Jon kills a monster or Adam's seen, you know, a giant, and we're just going to progress through that. So I know this one is just a little bit longer than most, but you see how we're relaxed. We're not pushing stuff. We're just visiting, and that's the kind of the idea. Now we do push products, and we're all about that. But the very cool thing is we have Troy now that's going to step in and take place of these videos. You're going to see a lot of reels. But to be honest with you, if you want the true product demonstration, the true product knowledge, we gave you a little taste of why we chose what we chose. We didn't have to go too into depth, but a lot of our guys and gals out there are shooting virtually the same thing we are, for the simplicity of is we know it inside and out. You know, you looked at the diversity between just the 3 of us here. We got a guy that's shooting a Garmin. We have, you know, a guy that shot the Matthew sight and then back to black gold, and why he did that. Why we had 6 different arrow builds for the most part of it. We're all shooting different releases. It's just it's a flavorful way to make people more comfortable. You know, sometimes you can walk in here and see, you know, millions of dollars of inventory. You can get turned off a little bit because you might not know. But don't be that. Don't feel that way. You know, you don't have to have a $2,900 setup. You can kill deer with $1,000 setup, $500.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, it doesn't.
To be able to go to one place that literally has like pretty much every brand and pretty much every model of that brand in stock for the most part, where you can try them side by side, and you can get real world situations run by of guys who have been doing it for a long time. Of, you know, this one looks really good on you. This one, I can tell you're actually more comfortable with this, even though you might not be able to tell yet because we see it over and over again. But to be able to try 9 different brands, 20 different models in one setting, you know. You know,
and it's interesting to sit back because we all have our clientele as a shop where guys are, I'm Matthews 100%. There's some Matthews shooters now that are shooting a PSC. We got the Elite Era that just like flooded, the new Carbon 1. People are slowly, when you can take an opportunity and shoot them, and then maybe it's a multi-day deal. You shoot them a couple times. You can tell it took Jon however many weeks to figure it out, months. Still maybe not figured out completely, but it may take you a little bit to figure it out. I hate to say it, maybe sometimes there's too many options.
Well, that's kind of the nice thing this year too, of like there's no lemons out there this year. Like every brand has got really solid options. Being one might be right for one guy versus the other.
Yep, absolutely. But we appreciate everybody listening on this podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Again, that's Adam and Jon up here in the Waite Park location, and these guys are open book. We all are. You can come in, and most of the time we can grab our setup and explain as we go through why. You don't have to mimic it, but you sure can. It's all phenomenal opportunity for anything. But again, we appreciate everybody listening. We hope you tune in. If you wouldn't mind giving us a comment, give us a like, give us a review on what you guys are listening to and what you're getting with. We will take a moment now to step away, and we'll see you on the next podcast.
Thank you for listening to Archery Country Podcast.